Ukraine is torn apart by revolution. As Western politicians cheered on Ukraine's Maidan, radical nationalist groups claimed power across the country. In Crimea, ethnic Russians are now asking for Moscow's protection. Where is Ukraine's legitimate government? What will it take to restore peace and unity? And what are the chances outside forces will have to step in?
And our guest today is Andrei Klimov, Russian senator, member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. It's really great to have you with us. So we're just going to start on from the latest news. Why did you guys approve the possibility of sending Russian troops?
First of all, because according to our constitution, this is our right to do. Only the Council of Federation can, so to say, give a permission to our president to send our troops out of our country or to move our troops inside this or that foreign state. And to give these rights to the president, he asked us, he addressed us, and it was our response to that address. So now we have everything according to our constitution, according to the Article 102 of the Constitution of the Russian Federation.
I'm seeing a Navy and military men out there, if you hear me, veterans, anyone, you tell me what you think. I have just witnessed the whole Navy of a country quit yesterday. I don't know if any of you know that. And that's true.
Спасибо. Никто меня не свергнул. Я вынужден был покинуть Украину под непосредственной угрозой своей жизни и жизни своих близких. Как вы знаете, в Украине власть захватили националистические. Те потрясения, которые были и жертвы, это последствия этого политического кризиса. Это результат безответственной политики Запада, которая потворствовала Майдану. Но Украина сильная страна, и мы обязательно выберемся.
Yankovich, the former president of Ukraine, fled Kiev, having made concessions to his political opposition on Friday. He had endured months of protests by demonstrators who were angry at Russia's influence over the policies of the Ukraine. So Ukraine is now being ruled by an interim government that's very sympathetic to the West. Russia has responded by denouncing the administration and, of course, and has sent in 15,000 troops and tanks, aircraft, taking over an airport, a military base, and has got the head of the Navy of Ukraine to listen to the Kremlin. Things are falling apart quickly. The question is, why is China siding with Russia?
It's just a mind-blowing event to me, because if the rest of the world cannot see that they've been infiltrated after what I'm showing you here, I don't know what else to say. This Navy ship that you see here was coming back from a NATO mission, told Kiev, go to hell, and raised the Russian flag and jumped sides. The whole military Navy command quit. What do you think is going on in this country? They've been infiltrated. I don't need to say it again. Maybe I should say it again. They've been infiltrated by the beast, by the CIA, and they've split this country in two. And when you see a military that swore an oath to protect the lives of their family and their country running, boys, you better know the gig's up. This is huge, man. The lines are being drawn. You've seen Canada jump up, Britain, UK, all these people acting all hard, Harper, all these guys voicing their opinions. But guess who's not saying much? Obama skips the meeting this morning. He's got John Kerry doing all the talking.
Russia has engaged in a military act of aggression against another country, and it has huge risks. It's a 19th century act in the 21st century. The president is currently considering all options. They're all on the table.
All on the table.
And hasn't met with the president of the Ukraine since 2012. Yeah. But then they show a picture of him holding a phone to his ear and say he's talking to Putin. Yeah, how do we know that? They're feeding us some crap, folks. I'm telling you.
He did spend 90 minutes on the phone telling Putin to pull his forces back. But that phone call, in fact, none of the warnings seems to have done any good.
I see their tactics. Okay? You know, I'm all for who's in the right, no matter who it is. And whoever's in the wrong, we're going to call them out. But I want you guys' opinion. What do you think in your heart and in your mind when you see a military fleeing from its own country?
Enter the dragon, China. That's right. And tidings from the north and from the east, which is in Daniel chapter 11, 41 through 45. If you'll just look what it says here. Now, we know about the Arab Spring and how that all these countries fell, which was really orchestrated by the Obama administration.
While digging for information here on if China would ever turn on Russia in World War III, I have come across some pretty startling information. I think that this is game-changing information, and I think if everyone realizes this, it might change the way they look at things here. China has signed a nuclear security pact with the Ukraine. This is huge. Granted, this took place in December. No one is talking about it.
But when Russia attacks Ukraine, China sides with Russia against America and basically against Ukraine. You want to know why? Because Russia, shouldn't China be trying to say to Russia, slow down a minute. We've got to deal with Ukraine. But no, as the headline I just read to you, China slams the West over its Cold War mentality. China sides with Russia. Well, wait a minute. How can you side with Russia when Russia's breaking the agreement with the Ukrainians and you signed a deal with the Ukrainians that would support them? Well, we're finding out that China has signed a lease with the Ukrainians to farm over 3 million acres of Ukrainian farmland is going to be farmed by the Chinese. And of course, Ukrainian gets a slice of the pie. They get royalties, they get lease payments, and they get part of the yield. So China is leasing 3 million acres in Ukraine. And that's why they signed a deal with Ukraine saying, look, if any aggression comes against you, anybody tries to attack you, we'll be right here to help you. But when Russia attacks Ukraine, China sides with Russia against America and basically against Ukraine. You want to know why? Because signatures by China and Russia mean nothing. China is going to support Russia and say to Russia, all right, we'll help you out here against against Europeans who may try to force you out of Ukraine. We've got a lot invested here with the Ukrainian government because of all this land. Russia, we'll side with you, but remember, we're going to farm the land. You can have the Crimea and the Black Sea ports and all that. We're fine with that. We want to farm the land.
Now, I'd reported earlier that China had made a nuclear pact to defend the Ukraine, but they made that with the president that is now sitting in Russia. They are all saying the same thing. They are saying that this is a U.S.-backed coup and that the government that is in there is a puppet government.
It's a disgusting hypocrisy. The problem, of course, as everyone knows, is that it's not the Russians who are intervening in the internal affairs of Ukraine. It was the U.S. and NATO. Everybody heard Victoria Nuland's open discussion with Ambassador Payet about who they want to put in office and who they want to keep out on the street to continue the violent demonstrations that were going on. What is sometimes left out of the coverage, but is increasingly understood and known, is that this entire coup, run by NATO and the Obama administration, was in open support of Nazis, neo-Nazi forces, the people who openly praised the collaborators of Hitler back in the 1940s, who gathered up the Poles and the Jews for slaughter.
Now, this is very interesting. The people of the Ukraine in the streets have caught this right-wing Svobodo neo-Nazi movement in the street, and they've rounded them up. This is an amazing video. Check it out. These are all neo-Nazis. They have live ammunition. You're going to see them holding up a round in this video. They have caught these guys infiltrating the protest, acting like normal people, and firing rounds. This is what sparked the whole war. These neo-Nazis, I said it before, and here's your proof. And it's all over the place. Go looking. I'll leave all of these links. The U.S. has been busted, and you're not going to hear it on the mainstream media. The Secretary of State came out from the Ukraine, who is also part of this Svobodo neo-Nazi party, and said that Washington supports it hugely. They have invested more than $5 billion to help the Ukraine to achieve these goals. They're busted.
Secretary of State John Kerry now traveling to Kiev Tuesday. Kerry telling ABC News Russia's actions are a, quote, brazen act of aggression, an incredible act, and that tonight the White House is considering all options. President Putin, however, defiant, telling President Obama he has the right to protect Russia's interests.
And indeed, the United States will stand with the international community in affirming that there will be costs for any military intervention in Ukraine.
President Obama, as of now, has threatened unspecified costs if Russia enters Crimea. What might those costs be? What do you think?
Well, first of all, it seems to me that Mr. Obama must look at himself, and it seems to me that his colleagues in Washington and in the European Union were too provocative during all the previous days, weeks, and even months. And it seems to me that with their support, we receive this crisis. So they have to pay these costs. And this is not just a computer game, you see. We are speaking about very serious things which happen not somewhere, 5,000 miles from Washington, but we are speaking about things which is really near our house. And we know well what's happened there, and we are ready to react because this is not just our neighbors, this is our brothers. And certainly to help our brothers, if you like, to help our own people to go out of this very dangerous situation, we'd like to do everything in the best way, in a proper way. But, again, it seems to me that Mr. Obama, he and his colleagues, they are responsible for this hot state of this crisis.
While the U.S. is also placing missile systems all along the Russian border, which clearly are targeting a first strike capacity against Russia by putting in the ability to take out the second strike response. We are on the brink of a global thermonuclear war brought about by this madman in the White House and his supporters in NATO, who are trying to provoke Russia into taking some sort of action to justify what they plan as a nuclear assault against Russia and potentially also against China.
Well, the strategy is, remember, that Russia has always intended to strike the West. They want to run their own new world order with them in control. We've got a temporary pact with China to join with them to control the world, and they'll have to fight it out. Whatever, they haven't gone that far down the road. But the goal is to take down the hegemony of the West. But the globalists continue to have to disarm to induce them to strike. And the big picture I want to put out is, and people don't understand, why is it the globalists would want to bring on a nuclear strike onto America? And it's because you can't get Americans to give up essential freedoms, national sovereignty, and yield to a global government unless the U.S. military gets taken down. If they let the U.S. military get taken down in a preemptive nuclear strike, then they can come out of their bunkers, and our leaders are building huge underground bunkers because they know this strike is coming. If they come out of their bunkers and say, oh, the Russians and Chinese deceived us, we didn't know this was going to happen, But our only salvation now is to join together with NATO and other forces and form a new world government to prosecute this war, and literally everyone will lay down and say, save us, do whatever it takes. We don't care about sovereignty, just do what it takes. That's why this is going to happen.
So we're in a showdown moment, which is going to be determined in the next hours and days. We're fully mobilized in the United States to get an impeachment process going this week against this madman, which is the only way we're going to stop this rush for nuclear war.
Now I want to look at 1 John 5:19. We know that we are from God, and the whole world lies in the power of the evil one. Now with that said, the evil one controls this planet. They say it in the scripture. Okay, so who's controlling this planet? The UN and NATO. It is the biggest war machine on this planet. It is the beast. And no, you can't say, all right, let's go kill the beast. Well, our country's part of that. And I foresee China during this Third World War turning on Russia. There's a problem here, though. If the New World Order in the end wants only 500,000 people on this planet to maintain, or 500 million people to maintain the population, how are all those Chinese going to make it? Who's going to drop all the bombs on China? This is where it starts to get interesting.
I'm projecting that Russia will be defeated eventually in that war because the West will cut a deal with China to betray Russia and turn on its rear, and Russia can't win. Now, here's the advantage for China in that. He gets to eliminate the other third leg of the conspiracy for the New World Order, and then it's only China versus the West. And then the West wants that. They want a reinvigorated China. They'll use, just like we invigorated Russia during World War II by giving them all that aid and Lend-Lease, we'll do the same with China. Because the West wanted the Cold War. They wanted this great enemy because it would justify so much more militarization. And the globalists will want an enemy, a Cold War enemy after World War III to justify keeping all of the militarized troops of the world government.
And by the way, these same elites stirred up World War I and World War II, and in so many of their writings, they say they need something bigger than a regional war. Rand Corporation and others have said in the last 3 years they need a World War III to get the Anglo-American world government in place. So, I mean,
and to keep it militarized, Alex, to keep it militarized, they need a war big enough that they've got an enemy on the other side. You can't win it all. That's why they sabotaged and didn't let us win against Russia. In fact, we let Russia.
Sure, that's why they didn't let Patton go in and beat Stalin or MacArthur, because they wanted to keep him there.
That's right. So we're going to have, after World War III, a powerful world government with a global military and a global taxation system, a new currency. Remember, you can't have a collapse of the dollar and a new currency unless you have a world government to manage it. They're certainly not going to let if the dollar collapsed, they wouldn't let the Fed reconstitute a new currency. And the Fed isn't going to let control of world finance. That's why I keep saying there's not going to be an economic collapse until this war comes, and that gives the powers that be cover. It's not their fault then if the economy collapses, because war did it.
Putin advisor threatens with dumping U.S. treasuries, abandoning dollar if U.S. proceeds with sanctions. This is massive. This is why we're going to go to war. The U.S. is out of money. Now they have an excuse and somebody to blame. But Russia is not that big of a impact on the U.S. dollar. Yeah, but China is. Remember a couple days ago, Russia and China unite? The yuan is also failing. Look at the market. Global markets are going down. This is why we will go to war over the economy. This is a banker war. If you don't see it, I'm telling you what I'm seeing. Wake up. Wake up.
Russia's stocks here are dropping down 10%. Before I did this video here within the past hour, it was at 9.47. Now it's above 10 and continuing to drop. I'm here to tell you that this whole world is a stage, whether you want to believe it or not, and that every world leader is in on this. And if they're not, they go in, they topple them, they throw up a puppet regime with somebody that will represent them. Okay, that's what you've seen them doing through Egypt, Libya, all over the place. Okay, going in and toppling the people that don't want to stand with the New World Order. So as you can see here, last night Putin and Merkel were talking. Merkel representing the beast EU system that is backed by the Fourth Reich, German, Catholic, Roman Catholic Church. As you can see here, if most of you can't see how scripted all of this is, how played out, how mirrored, how theatrical this is, it's right there in front of you. They rub it right in your face. You have to have the eyes to see that this is all about sun worship, and it goes back ancient. I've said it time and time again, and this comes down to the empire of the city that you see right here. And some may say, well, what about Russia? Russia is no exception. St. Petersburg. People better wake up quick. All of these people are involved with this new world order. And as you can see right here, the proof. Cardinal Scola was very happy in the forthcoming meeting between Francis and Vladimir Putin, which he describes as a fundamental point of reference for the building of this new world order. He says that Putin is a key reference point for the construction of this new world order. So if you're wondering where this new world order beast out of your book of Revelation in your Bible is coming from, you're looking at it. It is the synagogue of Satan, and it is coming out of their own mouth. They are the ones in control of this, as you're about to see. They all answer to this man, George Mario Bergoglio. That is his real name, Peter the Roman. And interestingly enough, you can find the words Gog and Magog both within his name. Now, speaking of Gog, Putin just got done exchanging icons of Mary. For those of you that don't think by now that he is in on this, he is. He answers to the same man that all of these, Kerry, Obama, Netanyahu, all answer to this man, the White Pope. They bow down before him in their sacrifice of the sun worship. I've watched all of these revolutions start off peaceful, like Egypt, like Libya, and I've watched them get infiltrated by the CIA and Vatican foot soldiers. And it all comes back to the Vatican. This is who they answer to. Some of you just cannot wrap it around your head. I know it's a hard pill to swallow, especially if you're trying to take all this in. But I'm telling you this right now. These Vatican neo-Nazi foot soldiers entangled with the CIA, they're all hand in hand here, guys. They all work for the beast, for one main objective. And this whole thing, in the end, is sun worship.
Know your enemy.
By sea, the Russian Navy poured in more forces. On the roads, Russian troops were on the move. On the border between Crimea and the rest of Ukraine, Russian soldiers were spotted digging trenches, a sign they're here to stay. And nearby, in Russia itself, full-scale military exercises were underway, ominously. For Ukraine's new prime minister, it was all too much.
We are on the brink of the disaster.
In Kiev, the Ukrainian government put its military on high alert and mobilized its forces for war. But Russia now totally controls this key part of Ukraine, the Crimean Peninsula, where there is strong popular support for Russia and where the Russian Navy has based ships for 2 centuries. Some of the local pro-Russian forces took over government buildings and trashed them. At NATO headquarters in Brussels, a sharp demand.
Russia must stop its military activities and its threats.
But at the Privolnoye Ukrainian military base here in Crimea, that wasn't happening. Hundreds of Russian soldiers surrounded the base in utter silence.
Why are you here?
Just a few feet away, behind the gate, Ukrainian soldiers. The Russian forces have demanded that they surrender their weapons. They've refused.
You will stay here?
As Russia ratchets up the pressure here, the danger is that the slightest spark, a panicked young soldier opening fire, a protester killed, could touch off a major war. Nobody wants that. But right now, there is absolutely no sign of any way out of this crisis.
This morning, Russian troops guarding a Ukrainian airbase and the Ukrainian guards themselves from the 204th Tactical Air Brigade turned up with their families, demanding the right to guard the base, at least with the Russians, if not instead of them. There was pushing and shoving. There were negotiations. Things became heated when the Ukrainians showed a certain defiance, and the Russians threatened them with their weapons. Some of them shouted that they might shoot them in the legs, and certainly by the end of this confrontation, shots had been fired. This is how it developed.
Вы прямом эфире! Америка с нами! Тише, тише, тише. Советский флаг, мужики, советский флаг. Вы стрелять будете? Боевая с нами наша! 91-го года! Все, Олег Ильич, тихо, тихо, это перебор. Поэтому у меня есть приказ. Сейчас командир придет сюда, ведет. Пожалуйста, командир. Переговоры будут, не вопрос. Да, переговоры будут. Остановите толпу и пускай ведут себя. Всем стоять на месте. Стой, Олег Олегович, стой. Мы все военнослужащие, если что. Мы еще граждане. В угоду какому-то одному политическому деятелю мы сейчас столкнуты лбами. Два братских народа. Это неправильно. Вы специально провоцируете. Мы не провоцируем. Мы без оружия. Какая провокация? Здесь самолеты стоят под охрану. А вы что делаете? Вы нас пришли без оружия, пришли на свои рабочие места. Все, что вы делаете, вы люди военные, вы нас понимаете. Я еще раз вам повторяю, если вы не понимаете, не нужно.
What they asking for negotiations? Okay. It's quite tense here, you can tell. What they were doing then was they were...
А вы что, сами не думаете? Вы же граждане тоже, у вас семьи. Тихо! Вы же не пришли там в Анапу, не пришли к вам в Сочи с автоматами. Мужики, вы что? Мы к вам идем сейчас без оружия.
Really, this is what it's about. It's about controlling the land, controlling the food population, controlling Europe. China and Russia are in position to control Europe ultimately, while the Americans are losing their grip everywhere. We're losing our positions in the Middle East, we're losing our influences, and we're losing our positions in Europe, and the European Union is also getting a major blow here by not standing up and protecting Ukraine. Russia and China are teaming up. And when they team up, you have tidings from the north, which is Russia, and the east, which is China, which is Daniel chapter 11, 41 through 45. Wow, get ready. Gog and Magog. But certainly, while you're talking peace and safety in Israel and a two-state solution with the Palestinians, are we going to have sudden destruction? That's 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 3.
What we're seeing them do in Ukraine and Syria is stuff they're going to try under race politics in the future here in North America. So this is very important to study and watch.
But the last verses of Daniel 11, 41 through 45, it starts talking about this Antichrist spirit moving in the last days. And it tells us many countries will be overthrown. In Daniel 11:41, he shall enter, he being the Antichrist spirit, shall enter into the glorious land, and many countries shall be overthrown. We know that's true. We've seen Tunisia, Egypt, Libya, Yemen, and others are toppling. Maybe Ukraine next.
Right now, the destabilization of the Ukraine is very ominous, considering the Maserati logo and the Ukrainian logo for the country are one and the same. We have prepared, now we strike.
We were like a wind appearing out of nowhere.
We wait until they get sleepy. Wait until they get so big they can barely move. Then we walk out of the shadows and strike.
Is this just a coincidence? I wish I had the answer.
The different layers of ink where the water's flowing over, I mean, it's impossible. Ian, Bud Light, Maserati, we prepared, now we strike. They prepared by working through humans to get it all ready, and it's coming, boys and girls, it's coming. So get saved, turn your life over to Jesus Christ, and accept whatever comes, and you'll be okay. If you try and save your life, you'll lose it. If you lose your life, you'll save it.